Have you heard the rumor, no one's buying Rolex anymore? It's the kind of headline that sounds too extreme to be true. This is Rolex we're talking about, a brand that practically invented the modern luxury watch market. For decades, they've thrived on scarcity, long wait lists, and resale values that often climb higher than the retail price itself. But now, the narrative is shifting, and it all started with a leak. In early 2025, a video surfaced from inside a Chinese manufacturing facility, reportedly in Shenzhen. The footage was grainy but revealing, showing a production floor lined with what appeared to be Rolex-style cases, bracelets, and even movement components. These weren't fakes. The finishing looked far too precise, sparking immediate speculation that the world's most iconic Swiss watch brand may be outsourcing part of its supply chain. Rolex, of course, has remained silent. No confirmation, no denial. But that silence didn't stop the shockwaves. Because not long after the footage went viral, something even more unexpected happened. Prices started to drop. Authorized dealers across Europe, North America, and the Middle East began subtly adjusting prices downward. Popular stainless steel models, once considered untouchable without years of waiting or grey market premiums, were suddenly available. And not only available, but discounted. These weren't huge markdowns, but they were enough to catch the attention of collectors and insiders alike. Some called it an experiment, others saw it as a signal of deeper change. Industry analysts suggest Rolex may be testing new pricing models to respond to a cooling luxury market, especially in China, where economic activity has slowed and luxury retail has taken a noticeable dip. There's also talk that Rolex is attempting to regain some control from the booming grey market, which has made it increasingly difficult for the brand to control how its watches are priced, sold, and perceived. Marketing experts have also weighed in, suggesting that Rolex might be feeling pressure to evolve its long-standing scarcity-based strategy. Today's luxury consumers, especially younger buyers, are more skeptical of artificial hype. They expect authenticity, transparency, and brand behavior that aligns with their values. Discounting, even in small amounts, may be Rolex's way of adapting without admitting it outright. Meanwhile, the watch community is split. Reddit forums, YouTube watch channels, and luxury blogs are flooded with theories. Some buyers are excited, believing this shift means better access and fairer pricing. Others are deeply concerned, because once you pull back the curtain on exclusivity, you risk changing how people perceive the product altogether. A Rolex isn't just a timepiece, it's a symbol, a marker of arrival. And if the brand starts behaving like any other retail company, adjusting prices, responding to controversy, scrambling to retain market share, then the mystique that made it untouchable begins to erode. Is this a one-off adjustment in response to a PR scare? Or are we watching the early signs of a new Rolex strategy, built less on waiting lists and more on wider access? One thing's for certain, in 2025, the Rolex narrative is shifting. And for a brand that built its name on control, that might be the biggest surprise of all. Rolex isn't just a watch brand, it's a fortress of tradition, a carefully maintained myth of precision, scarcity, and legacy. But in 2025, that fortress is facing cracks. And the question is whether the brand will reinforce the walls or start quietly remodeling from the inside. Let's talk about image. For generations, Rolex has wrapped itself in the mystique of absolute control. From the moment raw materials enter their Geneva facilities to the moment a customer's name is added to a waitlist, Rolex dictates every detail. It's that sense of control that helped turn the brand into a global symbol of success. But the leaked video from Shenzhen, suggesting Rolex parts being manufactured in China, challenges that perception head-on. Even if the video turns out to be unrelated or misinterpreted, the damage is already done. Because the moment you introduce doubt into the Rolex myth, you change how people feel about the product. That's the real risk. And then there's the pricing. The recent markdowns might be modest, but they send a clear signal. Rolex is watching the market more closely than they let on. For a company known for moving at glacial speed, any price fluctuation is monumental. This isn't just about economics, it's about identity. Because if Rolex begins behaving like a mainstream luxury retailer with fluctuating price tags and more accessible inventory, they risk diluting the very exclusivity that built their empire. At the same time, marketing experts argue that this could be a long overdue adaptation. Today's luxury buyers, especially millennials and Gen Z, are growing skeptical of waitlist games and artificial scarcity. They want clarity, transparency, and genuine value, not a mysterious allocation process that feels more like an insider's club than a luxury experience. The brand now finds itself at a crossroads. On one path is tradition, retaining exclusivity, prestige, and the halo effect that comes with being perpetually out of reach. On the other is evolution, responding to new consumer expectations, opening access, and staying relevant in a world that's becoming more transparent by the minute. The China controversy and pricing rumors have forced Rolex into the spotlight. And for a company that prefers to move in silence, that's unfamiliar territory. So the dilemma is clear: double down on the legacy, or evolve and risk losing a little mystique along the way. So where does Rolex go from here? For over a century, the brand has written the rules of luxury watchmaking. Now, it may have to rewrite a few. The leaked footage, the murmurs of offshoring, the price adjustments, they all suggest a shift. Whether that shift is reactive or strategic remains unclear. But what's undeniable is that Rolex is in transition. If this is a tactical retreat, just a temporary move to ease market pressure, then we may soon see Rolex return to its old ways. Tight allocations, rising prices, long waits. That could quickly stabilize the brand's image, reminding collectors and newcomers alike that owning a Rolex isn't a right, it's a reward. But what if this is the beginning of a larger strategy? What if Rolex is preparing for a new era of openness, more access, more inventory, more visibility? That wouldn't be a fall from grace. It could be a reinvention, a deliberate shift to stay dominant in a luxury market that's increasingly driven by experience and transparency, not just tradition and scarcity. It's not unprecedented. Look at what brands like Cartier and Omega have done, blending history with accessibility and modern engagement. If Rolex follows suit, it could retain its crown while also expanding its empire. Still, that move comes with risk. Too much accessibility, and the mystique that Rolex spent decades cultivating could vanish. Too little change, and the brand could feel out of touch, especially to the next generation of luxury consumers who demand more than just a name. In the meantime, the community watches closely. Collectors are holding their breath. Flippers are adjusting their strategies. First-time buyers are cautiously optimistic. And industry insiders, they're waiting to see whether Rolex speaks or continues to let the silence speak for them. One thing is certain: Rolex is at a critical juncture. This isn't just about one leak or a few price drops. It's about perception, about control, and about whether the most iconic name in watches can evolve without losing what made it legendary. So we ask you, has Rolex made the right move? Or are they on the verge of unraveling their own legacy? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more insights like this from the most powerful brands in horology, make sure you're subscribed. Until next time, stay stylish and stay informed.